and welcome to a new plugin guru video. My name is John Skippy Lim Cool. Welcome. So this is a short video to show you how to get multiple outputs in Kontakt 5 working. This is especially important with drum sounds like what we have in Supermacho drums. With so many drum sounds, you really want to have the ability to control and put different processing onto different drum sounds. This is showing one of the drum kits from the new Urban library we just released, OMG Urban. It's available for Break Tweaker, for Supermacho drums as add-on drum kits, and all the cool synth sounds are added to Serum as a separate library, and you can get it as a bundle at my website. This groove I'm going to show you is a bonus groove that's coming out on June 10th is what I'm aiming for. It's a lot of work to make drum grooves, let me tell you. It's not something you just like snap out. But I want to show you what it sounds like to take a drum groove that's in stereo with just the processing of Supermacho drums to multiple outputs with all sorts of processing from sound toys, from universal audio, from isotope effects added to this groove. So here it is, just Supermacho drums straight. In fact, I've gone through and turned off the limiter so that all the drum sounds, if you go to global and say stereo 1, that bypasses the built-in limiter that I've put into Supermacho drums, which keeps transients down just a little bit, but it does kind of round things out a little bit. You can bypass it by just going global and doing that, and it does it to all 61 samples at once, which is pretty cool. Then go back to drums so you can do separate programming and tweaking to individual sounds like you already can. So here's the groove in stereo, and then I'm going to transfer this MIDI file down here to another track, which is the same drum kit, but it's been set up already to 4 outputs with the effects on the kick, the sub kick, and the snare. Everything else is the same, but notice what change that does. You might not notice, it's a little subtle, but just make sure you got good speakers so you can tell, so you can really tell, because it's extremely subtle, okay? Right? I'm telling you. If you can't tell, it's okay. Put in the comments if you can't tell. It's all right. I understand. So here it is stereo. And here's the subtle difference. Ready? Subtle. You know, can you tell? Yeah? Okay, good. So yeah, you can do some pretty crazy things by having access to the different drum sounds and processing them separately. Let me show you what I did. The snare, just the built-in Logic Pro X's Convolution Reverb Space Designer. I think I used just the dynamic hall, and then I changed the shape of the envelope, because when you first call this up, it's like this. And so it sounds like you're being hit on the head by a stick. Well, you can change the shape. So it's smoother, make it short if you want. Bring down the balance. Because the other part of this is Echo Boy is doing this really cool, it's called Beat Wiper. It's got some really cool enveloping and stuff happening so you don't have transients. Now the bright kick of the Urban library, because the way NATO and I designed these was to have a sub and then a nice snappy kick for the attack. So this is the snappy kick. And if I turn off these two effects, it loses its snappiness by quite a bit. So I'm using the Transient Designer into the Teletronics LA2A, which just gives it this really nice snap. Consistent. Brings up the body of it. These are universal audio effects. You have to have the universal audio hardware to make them work. They're the best effects on the planet, bar none. And then on the kick, the sub, I have Decapitator from Sound Toys, and then Trash 2, Space Brushes, and once you call it up, it's set to 100%, but you can go over here to the slider to any of these effects, and then bring down the mix right here really quickly. So by having the sounds separate, and then I could automate this, so I could have this. You know, I mean, you can have all sorts of dynamic things happening, and it's just happening to one sound instead of to the entire mix. Okay, so how to get this from being stereo to where you see the 4 outputs. Right now you see 4 because it's configured that way, but we're going to set it back, and then we're going to change it back to this so you can see the steps, okay? Now, I'm not sure what your output assignment configuration in Kontakt 5 is. The way to find out is in the plugin interface. Here, let's have the browser so you see everything how it looks. If you click right here, you can choose what you see, and you can choose outputs. And here they are. Now, if I recall, I had a stereo 1, stereo 2, and then I had like a 5-to-1 surround output. And I don't need those. So anything you don't need, the first time you say no, oh wait, before you do this, the first thing you have to do is go into your DAW, and you need to say no plugin, and then you need to reload it and use the output options to give it the connections it's going to need. So let's say 8 stereo, because I want to have, that gives you 8 stereo means actually 4 stereo, because there'd be 2 audio channels on each of the stereo buses, as you can see. So I'm going to, since I've done that first, this is the step. I tried to do this in a live stream a couple weeks ago, and I failed miserably because I did not deload it and reload it with the right configuration. So by doing that and setting this up so that it's like this, so I've deleted everything. I'm going to keep the auxiliary buses because you might need those. I didn't see any reason. These are way down at the end of the chain after output 16. So I think I don't need those. So I didn't do anything with them. So if you select where it's got a, if you select in the middle of the body of number 1, and you can hit the plus button, you will get this output automated creation system. And you can say number of channels. If you want to have a surround sound, you would say how many surround sound channels you have. But since we're stereo, we're just going to say stereo, and I want it to make 4. And I want it to be connected to stereo 1, 2, and I say output, ascending output assignment, turn that on and say okay. And by doing that, it's made 5 pairs of stereo. And you see that these 2 are configured. So I can say delete this one, and then I need to rename these with a space and a 2. You can name these however you want. These are how they will show up in Super Modular Drums later. So name them whatever works for you. Now, if you don't see these connections down here, if it shows dashes, you can use these arrows to cycle around and see where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So here 1, 2, stereo 2. See how it shows you these configurations? If you don't see this, I would suggest doing this. Once you have it so it looks like this, even if there's dashes down here, go save current output section state as default for all formats. And then make it go away if you don't see those connections. And then reload it one more time. Make sure you say the 8 times stereo so that you have the chance to do that. And this time, hopefully it will load them. And if not, you can click here and at least should be able to see the stereo groupings right here. So you'd say stereo 2, 1 and 2. You can hit here to go to stereo 3 and say stereo 3, 1 and 2, right? So you'd set this up so at the end, when this is all done, you have outputs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 connected to stereo 1, 2, 3, 4. And just make sure that you go save current output state as default. What that means is next time you load Kontakt 5, it will remember this setup. If you don't do that, it won't remember it. It will reset to just being stereo, and all that work will be for naught. So now at that point, I can make the outputs go away. I'm going to use quick load to go down here to the kits. These are all the kits that now come with Super Modular Drums. It's pretty cool. And go loco and load it up. Now, because I had set this to be a stereo bus, I need to go over here and now hit the plus button. And because I've made other auxiliaries for this first set, it says 4, 5, and 6. I could say K5 stereo 1. Oh, there's my dog barking. And you could rename each of these, etc. like that if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. This is only going to show up on the mixer for the names. So it doesn't correlate to anything in the plugin. And then right click over here to make that quick load go away. And now I can play and say I want this side stick. If I'm on drums, look at, I got 4 stereo outputs. If I say 2, boom, the sound shows up to this. If I say output 3, it shows up to this one. If I say output number 4, it shows up to this one. Now, everything in the kit by default shows up to the stereo bus, including the effects. So it's best to leave everything alone, leave stereo bus 1 alone, and then add stereo bus 2, 3, 4 is where you'd put kicks. Kicks are the most important thing to pull out because just adding a little compression just to the kick and having it on its own channel, it's going to all of a sudden pop out of your mix in a really nice way. It's a really cool thing to be able to do that. So that is how you set them up. So you have them. Now at that point, whatever I load, I could go back to Mega Macho drum kits that were made a long time ago. Maximus, load. And I could go to this snare and I could say output 4. There it is. And I could say this kick to out. Let's play a new note. This kick to output 3. So 3 and 4 outputs, and everything else is here on the stereo. So now I can start going processing crazy, having a good time. Life is good. Okay, so hope this helped. Give you a little bit more expandability with the way you use Kontakt 5. That's the goal. And I'll provide the sounds for it. Now you know how to use it more. So win-win. All right, see you later.